We come from all walks of life. Are you looking for a walk in the park? Do you remember summer outings at the pool as lifeguards shouted, "Walk, don't run"? Who's the idol of the day that seemingly walks on water as we cover our insecurities in the fandom of empty, hyped up promises? Maybe you're looking for a walk on the wild side. Some of us are always walking on thin ice. Have you undergone a tough situation and been told to just walk it off? Maybe you're like me, walking to the beat of a different drummer. In our best, earnest moments, we endeavor to walk the talk. Given the hubbubaloo of organizational life, we find ourselves walking along the path, but leading to where? I'm afraid too many of us are sleepwalking our way through organizational life with the tools of storied sense-making and sense-giving. I'd like to share a story with you. And if it's okay, I've asked my angel friend back here to help me out with the details. I was at Mass today, and we are celebrating the Easter season, the risen Jesus Christ. And the gospel story was one of my favorites. It's a story about these two disciples. And it's the day of the resurrection. It is Easter Sunday, if you will, the first day of the week. And these two guys are absolutely distraught. They have no idea what to make of everything that has just happened in Jerusalem. And so what do? They do what a lot of us do in organizations. They decide to take a mental health day, and they head out of Jerusalem to a little village called Emmaus. And there are some wonderful baths in Emmaus, and that's where they're going. They're going to go soak their tired, weary bodies and try to make sense and unpack everything that's happened. As they're walking along and they're talking about everything that has gone down, a stranger joins them. And the stranger asks them, "Well, what are you guys talking about? What's all this news? I don't understand what you're talking about." And they respond to him like, "Are you really the only person in all of Jerusalem that doesn't know what just happened to Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified?" And he goes, "No, who was this person? What was he all about?" And they begin to tell him that Jesus had worked many signs and miracles and wonders, and everyone had thought he was a great prophet, and he was the one that was the Messiah who was going to save the Israelites and bring them freedom and liberation from the Romans and all of this kind of stuff. And he goes, "No, I don't know anything about this guy." And then he proceeds to actually share with them the stories of the prophets, all of the things that had been said about Jesus in all of the scripture of the great prophets, Isaiah and Jeremiah and on and on. And they're listening to this and they're taking it all in, and they just can't kind of put it all together. Nightfall comes and they're not yet at Emmaus, and they decide to step into a little place to rest for the evening. And they say, "Why don't you come and stay with us?" And it's kind of late to walk. And so the stranger agrees to stay with them. And as they begin to eat, the stranger takes bread and breaks the bread. And when he breaks the bread, these two disciples realize that they had been walking with Jesus, that it was in the breaking of the bread that suddenly they knew why that whole time their hearts were burning as he broke open the scriptures for them about who he really was. And then he disappears. So I'd like to unpack that story for you a little bit and share with you how actually that story has great insights about the nature of storytelling, and we live in our stories. With stories and organization. Like the two disciples, we can't divorce ourselves from the stream of events, words, situations, actions, and happenings that make up our organizational life. We are embedded in our stories. In this way, our story can be thought of as living, ever unfolding in front of us. We must step away from our stories to make sense of them. Like the two disciples who head out of town to calm the story storms they're caught up in the throes of, so too are we caught in the day-to-day movements of our stories stretching in front of us and around us, such that we lose sight of being in the beginning of the middle of a never-ending story. Invite the voice of strangers to narrate our stories. The two disciples make space for the stranger to walk with them and listen. What are we doing in our organizations to make room for the voice of people who, on the surface, may look like outliers to our sense-making endeavors, but who may share a treasure of untold riches in our sense-giving and sense-making pursuits? The story is always larger than us. The disciples can't take in the enormity of their experiences, aka the story they've been living in. In organizations, meaning-making requires humility to realize we are probing and discerning possibilities, not solving math problems with known right answers. Neither does that mean, though, that anything goes or that all relative approximations are meaningful, fruitful paths forward. Stories of the past inform our understanding of the present. The two disciples find their way, truth, and life when their hearts with the stranger's stories of the past. What are we doing in organizations to continuously connect the dots of meaning with others, drawing upon all of our stories, past, present, and even future? Be open to the miracle of story's capacity to surprise us and take us to new places. The disciples' eyes are opened in the breaking of the bread, the sacred act of Jesus giving himself completely to his followers in the most intimate way through his life, passion, death, and resurrection. What are we doing in our organizations to break the bread of unknown futures that arise when minds, hearts, and bodies unite with humility and sense-making? So, how about walking on sunshine? Perhaps the beginning of all storied possibilities with walking can be encapsulated in this last idiom. Through our sacred powers of imagination, perhaps all we need to do is start walking in someone else's shoes. The rest might just be details that emerge from the power of collaborative sense-making. Remember, we never walk alone.